Have you ever found yourself in a conversation where it feels like you're speaking a completely different language than the other person? Someone you used to connect with, and now it just feels impossible. Well, that's what we're going to dig into today. We're looking at the deep psychology behind our polarized world to figure out what's really going on when we just can't seem to talk anymore.
So let me start by asking you something personal. I want you to think back. When was the last time your world, as you knew it, completely fell apart? Maybe it was a crisis, a sudden loss, or maybe even a profound awakening. Because these moments, right, where the world is one way, and then in a flash, everything is different, these moments are actually the key to understanding why we get so locked into our own points of view. They literally create a before and an after in the story of our lives. What we're really talking about here is something called a paradigm shift. And it's not just a change of mind. It's like an inner earthquake. It doesn't just shake your mood. It fundamentally reroutes your entire life's path and shatters your old definition of what's real. See, we all have these experiences. And these powerful, often really painful moments, they're what jolt us out of autopilot. They force us to stop and question the road we were on, the values we held, and the script that society handed us. So this brings us to a really crucial question. Are we actually experiencing reality as it is, or are we just living inside our idea of it, inside a kind of mental map? Think about it like this. When we're kids, we're totally in our bodies, right? We're sensory, we're curious, we learn by touching and tasting and falling down. That's embodied experience. But as we get older, a lot of us switch to living in that mental map, where everything feels a lot more abstract, certain, and already figured out. Now, this map, it can feel safe, especially if we've gone through trauma. It's often way easier to live in the clean abstraction of our ideas than in the messy, unpredictable reality of the present moment. But that feeling of safety, it comes with a huge cost. It shuts down our curiosity and closes us off from what's actually happening. And this is exactly where the personal explodes into the social. Because when whole groups of people start living exclusively inside their own mental maps, they form these giant collective reality bubbles. And we see this everywhere, don't we? Politics, of course, public health debates, like everything around the COVID response, all sorts of cultural issues. It's gotten to the point where we're not just having different opinions anymore. We are living in fundamentally different, walled-off realities. And here's the kicker. Inside one of these bubbles, a different point of view isn't just an interesting alternative. It feels oppositional. It feels threatening. It feels like an attack on the very foundation of your world. So, let's unpack that. Why does that happen? Why can a simple disagreement feel so intensely personal, so profoundly unsafe? This is really the heart of the matter. It stops being about logic or facts. It becomes about this deep, almost primal feeling of being under attack the moment our worldview gets challenged. Well, there's a term for this. It's called battle mode. And this isn't a metaphor. It's a physiological survival state. When our worldview feels threatened, it triggers the same part of our brain that responds to a physical threat, like a predator jumping out of the bushes. And in that state, the goal is no longer to understand. The goal is to fight and to win. It's a simple and scary chain reaction. You perceive a threat to your reality. That triggers a fear response. That fear kicks you into battle mode, and the very instant that happens, curiosity, the engine of all real communication and learning, just completely shuts down. So you've got to realize when someone is in this state, you can't reason with them. You're not having a debate. You're in a fight for survival. To them, even a simple, honest question doesn't feel like a question. It feels like a weapon designed to weaken them. Okay, so if battle mode is the problem, then what in the world is the solution? How do we de-escalate this? How do we actually start talking to each other again? Well, it begins with building what we can call an empathy bridge. And the guiding principle here comes from the work of Marshall Rosenberg, and it's so powerful. It's this. You have to establish an empathetic connection before you attempt any kind of correction. Before the facts, before the debate, connection first. Let's use the vaccine debate as a perfect example. On the surface, the positions seem like polar opposites, pro-vaccine, anti-vaccine. But if you look underneath the stance, what's the fear driving each side? One person fears the virus, the other fears the vaccine. And what's the shared need underneath both of those fears?
It's the exact same thing, health and safety. Finding that shared need, that's the empathy bridge.
And this is so important. The goal is not to get them to agree with you. The goal is to get to that moment where you both look at each other and realize you're on the same team. You're both human, and you both want the same thing: health and safety. You just have different strategies for getting there. That is the only place real dialogue can begin.
All of this leads to a pretty profound conclusion. If we want to build these empathy bridges with other people, we first have to feel fundamentally safe and secure inside ourselves.
Think about it for yourself. Do you have a deep feeling that life is happening to you? That you're a victim of circumstances, that the world is unsafe? Or do you feel that life is happening for you? That you're guided, connected, and fundamentally safe? That inner sense of safety is what keeps you out of battle mode. So how do we cultivate that? Well, it often comes down to a few things. Embodiment practices, things like yoga, breathwork, meditation, that get us out of our heads and back into our bodies. It means doing the work to release fear that's been stored physically in our systems. And crucially, it means finding a supportive community, what in some traditions is called a sangha, a group of people who make us feel seen and safe.
And that really leaves us with a final, powerful question to reflect on. If our inability to talk to each other really stems from this deep, internal feeling of being unsafe, then maybe the most radical, world-changing act we can take is the quiet inner work of healing ourselves.